Okay, so now we need to look at how we actually differentiate aurally between these different types of triads. So some of being able to hear it is just understanding what dissonance versus consonance is, and that will help to lead your ear towards the triads that are more dissonant and the triads that are more consonant. So when you're just looking at like the sound waves of like frequencies of an octave is exactly an octave higher is exactly twice as fast as the frequency of like the octave below. So it's just the same pitch class. And so when you layer those on top, it's literally just going to be twice as fast of that frequency. When we hear like, for example, D, F sharp, and A4, which creates that major triad, you can see that this is the sound waves interact with each other, and there's not a lot of visual or aural dissonance between that major third and minor third. Do, mi, sol. Whether we play it as just like a closed position triad, or we have it inverted, or we play it in multiple octaves. Okay, the frequencies kind of line up with each other in a way that doesn't create very much dissonance. When we have more dissonance, we're going to hear the fourth and the fifth as consonant intervals in the octave, but the notes in between there, you can see there's going to be more clashing of dissonance between like seconds than the fifth. Okay, and then when we have like a fourth, but we go up the half step right in here, you're going to hear more, just more of a clash between those. And so those intervals, when we put them in context of like a major, minor, diminished, and augmented triad, there's going to be certain chords that sound more stable, like the major and minor. When we do minor, it's a little darker, and so we tend to hear those frequencies as slightly less stable than major in our ear. And then diminished, those minor thirds, even less stable. And then the least stable is this augmented triad, because the augmented triad doesn't exist actually diatonically in any diatonic scale, and so it's going to sound the most dissonant with that two major thirds, with creating that augmented fifth in the outer voices, which sounds like a minor sixth in the triad root position. These are just some like words that people tend to associate with major. Okay, makes hearing that major third happy, triumphant, versus minor. For diminished and augmented, these more dissonant intervals, literally the dissonance is a word that, if you understand that, lemon, kind of this lemon sound, it's very sour, it's unresolved, eerie, it has the tritone in it. If you listen for that tritone, the only triad that has the actual tritone in it, or that augmented diminished fifth, is this diminished triad. And then again, also unresolved is this augmented triad. The outer voices of that root position triad is a minor sixth, but it's written as an augmented fifth, which is why we call it an augmented triad. And depending on how it resolves, whether that fifth resolves down, we kind of have this like damsel in distress on like the train tracks. And if it resolves down, she's kind of like, gets saved. And then if you resolve it up, it actually resolves to an inverted minor triad. And then she like doesn't get saved. So the concept of that train whistle, or that being used in like old school like silent films when there's like a damsel in distress tied to the railroad tracks, that's kind of that railroad whistle sound of those two major thirds. So come up with your own list of things that these triads remind you of, and try to like train your ear to hear the differences of the diminished dissonance of these minor thirds versus the major thirds, creating that augmented